We might have a new favourite from Australia to get into the UFC. We're talking about him now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your main event.
Live from HBF Stadium Festival Hall. Melbourne Pavilion. Not even backstage, we're literally outside.
Was that the best fight card in Australian MMA history?
Call me crazy, but make sure you call me when I'm right.
Be good if the Aussie MMA Instagram page would give us a bit of glow up because...
Welcome to the Australian MMA podcast. My name is Mitchell Tinley. I am your host, and today we are breaking down Eternal MMA 94 March 15th. It was at Southport Sharks Centre place. It's not a stadium. It's a convention area in the Gold Coast. It's a beautiful venue, by the way. Look, another stellar event from Eternal MMA. You can see it on UFC Fight Pass. It took place on March 15th. Like I said, Eternal MMA 94. Go search it. Check it out. Let them know Mitch sent you. I don't know what that'll do for you. Now, if we run through the results, we've got Matty Iann. He took out the unanimous decision against, let me see if I can pronounce his name correctly, Alaiasa. We've got, he took him out by decision. Connor Downey took out the split decision over Declan Wolfinden. Peter Templar, very exciting bout, taking out Diellon Lihari. Rod Costa taking out Tim Moore. That's two former champions going at it. Jesse Medina pulling off the upset against Josh Kuhne with the rear naked choke, and Darcy Vendy putting everybody on notice. Just why he should be the next absolute king. Now, if we sort of sift through ye old like undercard or whatever it was, if you've ever wanted to know how you watch the undercard of an Eternal, most of the time you jump on the eternalmma.com website and you basically just subscribe with your email and you get to watch free fights, which I think is bloody cool. Back in the day, man, people were charging like $25. I think Eternal even did one stage, like $20 for like prelims. But now I think it's great. You just subscribe to the email, check it out, free fights, and then you jump on UFC Fight Pass and let's play $10. Like, it doesn't get much better than that these days. To be a bit of a fight fan, especially if you're an Eternal MMA fan. But just sifting through some of the standouts for the amateurs before I sort of move on. I enjoyed Randall Rowan on Blackman. That was quite fun. Brad Massimo, Max Kruger. Max Kruger is like a super duper uber Instagram sort of thing. He's got like 77,000 followers. That's wild. I think he does him better on TikTok. He makes up videos about how he sleeps in the gym. Anyway, he'll be back because he sleeps in the gym. You can't be a guy that sleeps in the gym and not make it. It's just, if you sleep in a van or a gym, you're gonna make it. So like Taser Malone, Jarrett Wilbraham, Nate Law, they're all in caravans or vans, and then like Max Kruger, he sleeps in the gym. Like just if your sleeping involves not a house, you're probably going to make it. So, look, even though Max Kruger lost, Brad Massimo looked really, really good. Lawrence Whitesmith, too, big fan of him. I remember when he was like 13 at Eternal, back when I was like a ring announcer, he had a towel and would open the cage door and wipe up the blood and the sweat. So, once again, similar guy. Like, he has wanted this for, like, I can remember him grinding for at least 7 or 8 years. So how does he not make it? He's going to make it. I don't care how, don't care when, but he will. Also, shout out to Robin O'Neill. She took out Hilly Diellon. It's always tough for Robin O'Neill. She's a promoter of Proving Grounds. Cam O'Neill's daughter, Casey O'Neill's sister, who's in the UFC. Constantly critiqued, constantly hammered. She's also like well-spoken. She's outspoken as well. So you either kind of love her or you hate her. I'm a big fan. She's very, very talented. She went through, I don't know how much I'll say, but like she went through like a lot. She had a passing in the family. She had multiple injuries that many people would have pulled out on. And keep in mind, this is not sucking up because she's even admitted, she said, fuck Mitch Tinley more times than not. But she's just an absolute stud. So I don't think people are fully aware of kind of like what she had to go through to even get into the cage. And she attracts a lot of heat, but she's a fucking fighter's fighter through and through. So shout out to her, and even better that she got the win. So hopefully we'll have her on and chat. And like she said, no post-fight interview. Check out Proving Grounds. It's a hell of an amateur show. Cage Fisher versus Max Davidson in the amateurs. That was amazing as well. Cage Fisher was the Australian MMA, the 2024 Australian MMA Amateur Fighter of the Year. And now you can see why. I think he went 4-0 in 2024, and he just... Man, he is like hell on wheels, eh? He just... Cage by name and by nature, he's an absolute stud. 1-0 to start the year. I wouldn't be surprised if... I mean, he's like 19 too, so, you're not going to rush him. He might be the first ever guy to win Amateur Fighter of the Year 2 years in a row, because you don't even need to send him pro yet. Look, he's an absolute stud. Max Davidson is... I think he was like 6-1 or something at the time. Out of the Fight Center, one of the best amateurs going around, and sort of what Cage Fisher did to him just proves just how amazing Cage is. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on, Mr. Cage Fisher. So congratulations there. Moving on to the main aspect of the UFC Fight Pass card, Peter Templar, Diellon Lihari. Now, Peter Templar just, year and a half ago, whatever it was, he just sort of bounced on in, took out the biggest hyped fighter who eventually ended up becoming the Eternal MMA welterweight champion. He was 2-0 at the time. Lachlan Stitt ended up pulling off the multiple publications submission of the year. It was absolutely just... It was incredible. So Peter Templar took him out and then just sort of like bounced to some Muay Thai, to some hanging out. He's like a legitimate black belt who has spent however long working on his Muay Thai. I didn't get to chat to him before this fight, so a lot of my facts of him will probably be skewed a little bit. I think he was at Mackay MMA and now he's at CMBT, and they are just... It's almost like Miles Mawecki, the head coach. Almost like he took being runner-up in Australian MMA's Gym of the Year personally, because it's like he's loaded up even more talent. It's incredible. That gym is looking like in March that it could be the Gym of the Year. Like, that's how good they're all doing. Even if they're losing, the way that they're just rallying around each other, it's actually incredible. He's doing a really, really good job there. Got great sort of leadership with Brenton Mumford and crazy lunatics like Josh Kuhne, just stud fighters. I think they've got at the moment have Reece McLaren training there, ONE FC fighter. Like CMBT's got a massive, massive future. If you see a fighter is from CMBT, you sit down and you enjoy the show, because they're gonna bloody bring it. So Peter Templar went, I think, 0-2 to start his career. He actually lost to David Martinez back in 2018, who is the Eternal MMA welterweight champion, which could prove a nice little story down the road. But yeah, he's already fought 2 Eternal MMA welterweight champions in his first 4 fights, and then he takes on Diellon Lihari, who is really highly touted amateur out of Absolute MMA, and some have said at times like one of the best grapplers, if not the best naturally gifted grappler out of Absolute MMA. And look, he's an absolute stud. Diellon Lihari, I think, took out Isaac Dean. He kind of retired after being like 7-2 and like a double champ as an amateur, and just sort of bounced and then came back as a pro with kind of like a newfound lease on life. And I think it was really good. It did really well. Look, the fight ended with Peter Templar picking up a round 1 submission via triangle. I don't think it does any harm to Diellon Lihari. It was just sort of like he got over eager, he shot in. Templar had a pretty sick, pretty tight Kimura grip, and Diellon Lihari picked him up and threw him on his head in like the closest thing we've ever seen to Fedor versus Kevin Randleman. If you've ever seen that, where Fedor has Kimura back in Pride in like 05 or 04 or whatever, and Fedor has Kimura grip, and he picks him up and basically like pile drives him on his head. And then within the next 30 seconds, he turns around. And I think is it a Kimura? He beats Kevin Randleman, like after being dumped on his head. And that is exactly what happened. Peter Templer got picked up by Diellon Lihari, bloody Undertaker-style WrestleMania season, tombstoned on his head. And then he just somehow transitioned to a triangle. And I cannot explain to you just how good Diellon Lihari is. And he ended up beating him after getting dumped on his head and still submitting the Albanian weapon. So yeah, Peter Templer, man, he's underrated. I mean, I've been talking a lot last couple of days about guys being underrated, but Peter Templer might just be the most overlooked guy in all of mixed martial arts. Don't get me wrong. If he hadn't bounced straight after Lachlan Stitt, I think he'd already have had title opportunities and whatnot. But I think it's kind of a very interesting journey. But I'm very, very excited for what comes next for Mr. Templer. Who knows what is on the horizon for him? Like I said, Diellon Lihari will bounce back as well. Moving on, an absolute gun of a prospect, and I say gun very aptly because Matty Iann out of Australian Top Team is one of their brightest prospects in a gym full of absolute killers. He took out Marco Alaiasa. Sorry, I'm borderline retarded. Matty Iann is a bantamweight to watch. If you ever see him hit pads, just the way he moves, it's very, very crisp. Like if you watch the UFC, like that Marco Ruffy guy, he moves like that. Like he's just, everything is silky smooth and slick. And even his previous fight against Jean Alexander, the way he like hip bumped him with the Kimura grip and swept him, it's just, everything he does is just, he looks like a video game that is like maxed out at stats. You show him something. If you talk to his coach Sumar Mukhtarian, both him, Ashkan, who run Australian Top Team, they've been to the big show themselves. They say Matty Iann is definitely one to watch. And he's probably one of the scariest guys outside the cage too, which is, around that gym. That means a lot. So scary inside, scary outside. Matty Iann, I just think is definitely one to watch. So he picked up the decision victory, 30-27. He's 2-0 now. I think you just slow the journey type thing. You don't need to kind of rush him. However, this kind of transitions really well into this next one. Now, Rod Costa took out Tim Moore. Rod Costa, former bantamweight champion. Rod actually mentioned in his... Now, there is I'm glossing over this because we're going back to Matty Iann. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but Rod is actually one of the first guys to go, hey, look, you know what? I'm like 36 or whatever. I'm 8-8. He might have been 9-8 now. He goes, it's almost like it's time to give back. He's like, I'm not going to be one of those guys that's like, oh, I've earned it and you haven't. He is more than willing to give some up-and-comers a chance and almost be like the UFC dream killer. So I think if anyone kind of wants an opportunity, like that Rod Costa sort of bout is always there, and it sounds like he's really open to it. I'm not saying Matty Iann, I think he's still a couple fights away from that one. It's a slow burn for Mr. Iann, as he's only 24, but mate, incredible upside. And if you can be sort of a shining gem at Australian Top Team, it just shows how much promise you actually have. That moves us on to the bantamweight fight of Rod Costa and Tim Moore. Something along the lines of, I think Rod Costa, he said it in his post-fight interview, I wasn't as glued onto this as I was supposed to be. Rod Costa eventually ended up taking out Tim Moore via submission, and there was some issues with the weigh. I don't think there was a weigh-in issue, but I do think he let Tim Moore know ahead of time that he was kind of not going to make weight. Could they do it? Which I think is the better way to do it. His coach, Rod Costa's coach, Ben Vickers, is always like, don't tell the promoters, kind of nothing I can do about it. But if you're not going to make it, kind of almost call ahead, because you never know. Where if you wait till you step on the scale, the other guys can't wait. it's kind of dodgy. Where if you give the guy a heads up, it's like letting Tim Moore going, hey, man, don't cut anymore. Now, the reason why I think this is interesting as well is Tim Moore, former Eternal MMA flyweight champion, just an absolute legend of the game in terms of been around for a long time, absolute veteran. That fight was fun to watch. It was like just two guys that would fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, and a couple of old dogs just going at it. Tim Moore and Rod Costa actually went at it at Battlegrounds, I think, a couple months ago. Rod Costa beat him by guillotine. So, he's got 2 subs up on Mr. Tim Moore, but Tim Moore, nothing to be displeased with. I think he's at CMBT too. Studs. Tim Moore's a really good fighter, so hopefully he gets more, not favourable matchups as in ones he will definitely win, but just one fights he wants type thing. I think there's almost something really cool about the late 30s guys, like a Brenton Mumford and stuff, sort of just coming back and getting the fun fights and not just being fed to contenders type thing. And then on the other side, you got a guy like Rod Costa who is saying, hey mate, if you want to test yourself and think you can do this, let's dance, baby. And I think that's what Rod Costa does really well. And I think that's why we love him. I love them both. I cannot be... Anytime there's a Rod Costa fight, man, I'm there. Unless it's in Gold Coast and I'm in Perth, then I'm here. But look, shout out to Rod, shout out to Tim. Absolute G's. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, Eternal MMA 94 UFC Fight Pass, March 15th. Jesse Funkico Medina, training out of Mildura. Split down the middle, 16-16 is his record. He spent a bit of time with Luestro Combat Academy. He came in as a real tough task for Josh Kuhne, but Josh Kuhne's definitely the fan favourite. Like I said, Country Victoria is Jesse Medina with a little bit of training in Western Australia. I think trained out of... taking on Josh Kuhne, who another exciting man out of CMBT. Josh Kuhne, I really think should just go into... he actually mentioned it on the podcast when we chatted. I think he should just go into bare knuckle fighting. The big KFC's coming in July. Even boxing. I don't know. It's dumb. Look, the result, Jesse Medina ended up basically getting a nice deep half guard, getting to the back of Josh Kuhne and submitting Mr. Kuhne, because you ain't going to want to stand with that man. They call him Kamikaze for a reason, and he puts people to sleep. But I think Josh Kuhne is something like 33, 34. I think he turned 34 yesterday. I don't know how much longer he wants to do this. I think the sort of contender journey is sort of over. I think there's still a lot of fun fights he can have, and he gets itchy knuckles, as they say. So I think there's still a lot of fun fights out for him to have. And Jesse Medina, it's just good for him to get a nice victory against a tough guy, because he has been sort of very underrated. He's a guy that, they mention it all the time, but Jesse Medina beat Jack Jenkins. It was a little while ago, but Jack Jenkins is a little stud. He's in the UFC. Was the dominant Australian champion. Medina's got skills, and he just doesn't really get credit. Seems kind of be always the wrong side of 50-50. So it was good to sort of see him get some flowers and get some praise. And I really don't know what's next for either of them. But like I said, Jesse Medina, 17-16. He's had a long career. How much longer does he kind of want to keep doing this? Who knows? Look, the main event, guys. This one was special. Main event, Eternal MMA 94. Of course, the Usurper, Darcy Vendy, defending his Eternal MMA middleweight championship against a man that never lost the belt. Mad Dog, Matt Myers. Now, man, look, Darcy Vendy ended up taking out Matt Myers via rear naked choke in round 3, I think it was. First round was tough, really, really back and forth. Matt Myers coming off, I think it was 3 years without an official fight, 2 years or 18 months since an injury where his ACL was completely gone. He was scheduled to take on Brogan Anderson, and that fight fell through. And eventually had to vacate his belt, the belt that he won from John Martin Fraser. Ironically, Darcy Vendy won his middleweight championship from John Martin Fraser, who was in the crowd at Southport Sharks, and just fun fighter as well. So it's, hopefully we see John Martin Fraser back real soon. He's got a new kid, so if he's taking some time off, and we see him back, bloody violence will come. But yeah, it was really, really special, I think, to see Matt Myers back in the cage. He deserved to go straight back into a title shot. He is very talented on the ground. He is very violent standing. He lost, vital years of his career due to injury. I think he looked really, really good. And I think against anyone not named Darcy Vendy, he maybe regains the belt, and we talk about the whole redemption cycle coming back from injury. But the Usurper is, without a doubt, ironically taking his rightful place on the throne, because he is the best prospect in the sense of, he's a middleweight. He finishes fights. Like, he looks like a statue made out of granite. I know George Mangos is like an absolute stud of a prospect, but like Darcy Vendy has quickly become probably one of the most hyped prospects and one of the most exciting opportunities that we're going to see at Dana White Contender Series. He called his shot. There was a bit of back and forth in the first round, but Darcy Vendy took control of the second and the third, and tell me a place that Darcy Vendy isn't good. He's great standing. He's got cardio for days. He doesn't even look like he gets hit that hard. Even when he gets cracked, you look at him after the fights, he doesn't have a mark on him. His wrestling is impeccable. And his ground and pound is just violent. Like, he's good everywhere. He's still young. I think both men are 29, 30. So it's like Dana White Contender Series, July. You'll probably find out May if you wanted, maybe a little bit earlier. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Darcy Vendy sort of gets his opportunity, and everyone has talked about him having all this potential. And we've talked about it many times on the show before. I won't go on about it, but he was fighting guys that were well beneath his level, and no one really understood why. He went on his own sort of personal growth journey, and then he takes on John Martin Fraser, and everyone's like, well, time's up. We're going to find out if you are who you say you are, type thing. And a man that once said, I genuinely think if you put me in there with Kamaru Usman, I'd beat him. That statement is starting to age well. I'm just saying. He could have been right. He very much could have been right. I tell you what, if you put Kamaru Usman and Darcy Vendy in the cage right now, I'm picking Darcy. The man has a victory. Look, I know it was 100 years ago, but the man has a victory over Jack Della. Darcy has everything in his resume that tells me that the UFC wants him. I mean, they did it with Sean Gauci when he beat Steve Erceg. That's what they talked about when he walked to the cage. It'd be the exact same thing. Like, think about it. Darcy's beaten everyone there is to beat. He's young, built like a brick shithouse. Like I said, good standing, good on the ground, great grappling, comes from a great gym. He's well-spoken. He's a polymath. Every time we have an interview, I have to Google the words he says because I don't really understand them. He gardens and drinks wine and reads books. He's not your stereotypical guy. He's a guy that he's really gotten really good in the media, despite hating Instagram. Doesn't even run his own Instagram page. He walks to the cage. I can imagine them saying it now. Darcy Vendy, he beat Jack Della. the UFC welterweight champion, because that's what he'll be when they say this. I mean, you tell me. I don't see a world where his next fight is not in the UFC. So, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Matt Myers, I do think, will be back. I know Cam Rouston is out there. I have heard it. I do have a theory, and it's pretty like an educated theory. I do not believe Cam Rouston and Darcy Vendy will fight for the belt at all, because I don't think the CKB boys in New Zealand, there's like a really close relationship via Ben Johnston of the Fight Centre, and I don't think that they will ever fight each other. And Darcy, I think Darcy will get signed anyway. Cam Rouston might even get signed. His recent victory was in front of Hunter Campbell. Wasn't the most super exciting fight, but at the end of the day, they know Rouston's got enough skills to get there. He got to Contender Series the first time after a 2-year wait. Why wouldn't he get a second opportunity? So in my bet, I actually think that the middleweight division gets like decimated, and they take Rouston and they take Vendy and they put them on the Contender Series. And then what I wouldn't mind seeing, actually, as much as I love all your Fergus Jenkins down the road and your Alfred Stoddarts and all that sort of stuff, I actually think you weirdly still do the trilogy of John Martin Fraser and Matt Myers. I know both coming off losses, and that would be unheard of in Australian MMA, but I think circumstances, that makes sense. And tell me you don't want to see that fight, and I'll tell you a man that doesn't have a heartbeat. John Martin Fraser versus Matt Myers for the Eternal MMA middleweight belt. I don't care if both of them are coming off losses. I don't give a shit. Make it happen. But yeah, Darcy Vendy's off to greener pastures. He has made fools of all of us that have ever doubted him. The Usurper is King Vendy until we get to Contender Series, and he's back to the Usurper. Congratulations, Mr. Vendy, and his little life partner, Daddy Ravioli. John Aiello. It's a really nice, cool friendship. I really like it. It's a funny little buddy cop thing. Check out their podcast, Time to Gas Tank or something. I don't know. Go check it out. Good guys there. Yeah, guys, Eternal MMA 94. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed your reaction. Let me know. I've had some bloody hot takes recently, so let me know your thoughts on those as well. Australian MMA _ on all these social platforms. One of these days I'm going to get the _ away, but until then, I hope you guys enjoy it. Yeah, check out my Beatdown Promotions breakdown as well. You can see that on DAZN. Eternal MMA 95's next one up for Eternal on UFC Fight Pass. Other than that, see you guys next time. Peace out, bitches.